Hello, and welcome to the Habitat Project podcast, where we talk about cultivating good habits, pursuing our dreams, and enjoying life. I am Anthony, and these are my findings on how to make the most out of each day and enjoy the process along the way. Let's go. Hello, inhabitants. Welcome back to the Habitat Project podcast, episode 35. My name is Anthony, and I made Habit app to help those going through a setback get back on track through building good habits and practicing Stoic philosophy. Today's episode, we have Athena Nathalia. She is a digital marketer based in the UK who has been one of the first people to give the Habitat Project a go back when we were still using the physical journals. Athena grew up playing competitive tennis, is an avid CrossFitter, and a self-taught computer coder. I want to catch up with her today to talk to her about the challenges that she's currently going through, the habits that she's looking to develop, her goals for the year, and lastly, to discuss the next stage of development of Habit app, where we'll be getting feedback from the users about the guided meditation and journaling fundamentals that have been created to help those starting out to build the habit. Without further ado, this is Athena's inhabitant story. Hi, Athena. How's it going?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. What time is it over there, by the way?
It's 3 p.m. Yeah, it's still bright out there, but it's gonna get dark soon.
Yeah. Well, we are nearing 10 p.m. here, so I'm gonna try my best at stringing together the sentences as best possible, but we'll push on and let's get into this.
Sounds good.
Cool. So I want to start with talking about tennis. You grew up playing competitive tennis. I am interested in this because I think this shapes the way that you approach challenges, the way that you approach training, and the way that you approach developing habits. So can we start there? And I was just wondering, what does a typical day look like back then when you were training competitively?
Yeah, so I tried to pursue like a professional tennis career as a junior, but that was a tough one, I must say. And at the same time, I have to juggle studying, like in being in high school as well at the same time. So my schedule looked like so basically we start training around 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning. I can't remember. I think we go for like 2 hours, and then you shower, and then we go to school straight away. We probably miss like one or two lessons, and then we finish school by like 3 p.m. I believe, and then we've got training again at 4 to 6, and then we've got like potentially like a physical like fitness session afterwards, so for 1 hour or half an hour depending like what day it is. So say on Monday we call it like we've got the medium training, and then Tuesday you've got the tough Tuesday. Wednesday you do recovery, so you just do like half an hour stretching, mobility stuff. Thursday we go back to medium, and then Friday we do freak out Friday. I love that term. It was quite traumatizing, but yeah, it was like the day we just go all out, train really hard, and then Saturday we do like a fun, enjoyable sessions. So I feel like it was quite full on looking back. I wasn't sure, like I'm not sure how I coped with that. That was like amazing skills to yeah.
So how long was that kind of training for? How many years did you train like that?
Yeah, so basically when I moved to Australia, really, so when I was 12, I went to Gold Coast, trained there, and did my high school. So it's basically 5 years of doing the same thing almost. Yeah, and then during the holiday we've got tournaments to do as well. So yeah, it's quite intense, I must say. It's like full on, but it was a very, very valuable experience, and I guess it kind of shaped who I am today as well.
How do you think it has shaped who you are in terms of overcoming challenges, or because it was a very intense way of training from your teens? How has that transferred into the way that you approach challenges today?
I suppose like the main thing would be like time management skill. Like one, you've got to prepare yourself physically, And mentally for training, you prepare the night before, what clothes you're gonna wear, do your school homework, whatever. And then also, whilst you're traveling, sometimes you have traveling for tennis for tournaments whilst there's a school period. You're just preparing your assignments, for example. So being able to sort of balance those, I mean, like, I'm not saying like I was perfect, like I wasn't like a straight A student. I know some people like managed to do it, and kudos to them for sure. And secondly, I guess, yeah, being a good multitasker that way, because you just know how to, okay, put your focus on tennis training, put your focus on fitness at the same time, and a lot of things going on as well. And I think in terms of like overcoming challenges, I think it's quite interesting way, because tennis is a lonely sport. Like everyone can see that, like almost like individual, really. And you for some tournaments you're not allowed to have some coaching,
Mm.
uh, competing. So I think it's because whilst we're training, we try to have the environment as similar as like competition settings.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, like you're training under stressful situation, like we do, like with cold shower or workout, like a crazy metcon, whatever. And also, I guess it's also I'd like to credit my coach back then, it's Chris Steele. Like he taught us how to, take a breather every point, don't rush into it, go to the back fence, think about your next point, what you can do, instead of like dwelling in the past. I mean, yes, some people can get emotional about each point if they miss or they lose a point. That's who they are. But I think what is important is like being able to move on and learn from what you've done in the past as well. And I think also I had a sports psychologist help as well, whilst like trying to deal with, I was growing, it was my teenage phase as well, so like that was like my core brain chemistry, it's like trying to develop my brain as well. So I think, yeah, it's I think I was quite fortunate and privileged to have those accesses, and then being able to learn about myself and able to balance my feelings. And considering I'm an introvert, I like to ruminate a lot. So sometimes trying to control, like not trying to get into deep and be like thinking what if, but more
Mm.
about like, okay, what can I do next?
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially at that period of time where you can train and do schoolwork and have this schedule, which then allowed you to have good time management skills, but also this understanding that I need to be in the moment to do what I can in this moment. But if I get distracted by what's already happened or what will happen, I'm taking myself out of the moment and I'm not going to be able to perform at my best. I think that is such a valuable lesson to learn through sports. Obviously, different sports do it differently, but at the core of it, you need to be in the moment in order to be executing instead of worrying about what's already happened or will happen. And speaking from my experience playing competitive basketball growing up, that's definitely something that I didn't think that I would be learning about playing it, because I just played it because I just love the sport. But when you start to play at a competitive level, when games are more important, you gain an understanding as to how you can perform at your best, which is in flow and being in the moment. So I kind of understand what you mean in that regard. Okay, let's push forward. I want to talk about a time in the pandemic where you felt a little bit burnt out. This was when we started the Habitat project. Back then, I was doing the verification of the ideas before it got turned into Habit app, the mobile app. What was it like at that time that made you feel burnt out?
I guess it's like during the pandemic, we weren't allowed to do many things back then. Like you just confined within your own space, which is your home. And I mean, for some people, you know, you could find a new hobbies. Some people you just like to stay home and binge watch Netflix. And in my case, I guess at that time, like I wasn't having any problems with being at home because I do enjoy having like some alone time at home. But I guess not having that, you know, other things to do at the same time. Sometimes you became so content, you just do work 9 to 5, the same routine all over again. It can be quite, you know, I guess it's more tiring, I guess, in my case. So yeah, that's when like I started to get into, you know, learning coding as well. And then, you know, I just wanted to do this, do that, just to keep my mind like busy, really. But yeah, I think at that time it's just all about work, sleep, workout, work, sleep, workout. So yeah, I guess just doing the same routine really.
And at that time, did you have a meditation or journaling practice?
No, I did not until we've got the habitat.
Okay. And do you think that if you, for somebody who is starting out and going through something similar, and one of the things when people first want to meditate is they think like, oh, am I doing it right? Or they think like, oh, I haven't achieved whatever they think they should be achieving. Um, was that ever present when you first started?
Not quite. I mean, I'm again, when I did my degree, I did psychology, so we've learned more about like mindfulness and meditation practices, and you know, being aware of yourself and your surroundings. So it wasn't like a struggle, like if I do the practice, but it's more like a struggle when I do stuff like eating, for example.
Mm,
I like to rush when I eat for
mm,
some reason.
me
I
too.
should have, yeah. Uh, yeah, it's just a bizarre reason, isn't it? But also like when sometimes when you work out, some you just not paying attention to certain, I don't know, body movement, and you just do it
Mm,
because you know muscle memory, but at the same time it's quite vital to know what where your tightness is, where you know the hip extension, very technical stuff. So I guess no, I would say no, but in terms of like being consistent and applying it to real life situation, maybe it is a work in progress personally.
and at the moment, do you think that is that something that you practice daily? I mean, the mindfulness practice.
I normally do it like in the morning, so before work, just to get my mind, you know, just get some clarity and clear
Mm,
headspace, and
mm,
you know, being okay, productive state. Let's
mm-hmm,
do this. But like on a day-to-day basis now, what I do is just like when I go for a walk, I try to, you know, feel the ground a bit, just
mm,
paying attention to my gait, just making sure like,
mm.
oh, I take the same steps with my right and left foot, just for some fun reasons, really, like looking around at the trees, like just being almost like being present and being aware like what's happening out there. But obviously, like in terms of like meditation practice, it's something that I'd like to pursue more and perhaps like increase the duration. And yeah, I think it'd be very beneficial.
I think that putting yourself in the moment whilst you're doing whatever it is that you're doing is like what they say, like is the like the key to happiness. I can't remember where I read this. I will look it up after this again. But they did an experiment where I think this was when smartphones or iPhones first came out. They gave it to a bunch of people and they texted them at random times, asking what they were doing and what they were thinking about. And basically, people responded throughout this period of time, where this experiment was taking place. And what they found was the people who were happiest were basically the ones that were thinking about whatever they were doing at that time. So if you can do that with the most simple things, like, you know, being aware of your steps, of your gait, when you're walking, it's actually like cultivating happiness in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like some random small things, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is cool. Like
Yeah.
some novel, and then whilst you walking your dogs as well. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm walking my dog. It's he looks happy. He's being aware of stuff. Like because they could sense your energy at the same time. Like you can't be
Mm.
like thinking about other stuff and get distracted, and then they're gonna start chasing, I don't know, other dogs or squirrels, right? So
Mm.
I think that's also like practice for me. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think walking Louis in the morning is like one of my favorite things to do. Just because, yeah, it makes him so happy. And yeah, it's a nice start for the day. I get my sunlight, I get my morning sunlight when I do it. So it's really cool. Let's push on. I want to talk to you about any challenges or any goals that you've set for yourself. Doesn't have to be this year, but it could be because it's the start of the year. If you've set new goals for yourself this year, what are they? Or what are the challenges that you are currently facing?
As I previously mentioned earlier about like slow eating, I guess that is still my main struggle ever since I spoke to you like 2 years ago. um, like I don't want to, start a timer at the same time because that feels like very strict structure. Whilst you should be enjoying your meal at the same
Yeah.
time. So I'm trying to find that balance at the same time. So yeah, one is just living slowly, learning
Mm-hmm.
learning to slow things down, and
Mm.
being someone who's very inquisitive. Like I like to learn new things, and if there's something new, I'd like to know how it works. Like
Mm.
living in this day and age, everything moves so fast. There are a lot of things going on, new things every day is happening. So because of we have this internet and smartphone era, everything is easy to access, right? Like you could just get a notification saying like, oh, this thing happens, and you'd be like, okay, well, I want to know more. So and also like yeah, so in that case, sometimes I just want to get a FOMO. I guess that's the thing, and then if there's something that I'd like to learn, like for example coding, like 2 years ago, I I just wanted to get a lot of things going on. Like I just want to learn this um, syllabus or whatever. But now I'm just trying to, okay, maybe just break it down, slow down. Like you don't have to know everything. It's okay. You're learning. You want to make it sustainable in terms of like your progress and learning. So one, try to minimize the distractions really. Like one, try to get off your phone, off social by 9 p.m. just so you could like, wind down, be prepared for your, to go to sleep and such. So yeah, slowing things down, that would be like my main goal. Either eating or learning. So I think I would say that.
With the learning, that's interesting because we have access to the internet and smartphones and all that, we kind of expect ourselves to make, you know, big successes really fast because, well, one, we see it on social media, but two, also because we have access to this information. So it's kind of like we judge ourselves so hard when it when it doesn't happen, or like when it hasn't happened, which isn't the most useful, and like I said, might not be the most sustainable way of pursuing your goals. I think one of the things that I consciously try to do is to make sure that the work bout, or the workable chunk of work out of the grand process is something that I can put uninterrupted focus into, and it's not too difficult that it becomes overwhelming. That it's just too hard. So that's interesting that you mentioned that, to slow down on the learning, because, well, we that's actually how we learn best. And even like things like speed reading and things like that. I understand, like, sometimes we want to speed read just to get to the point in order for us to absorb certain information, but it's a slow, deep learning that I think is beneficial in the long run. But once again, depends on what you're doing it for. I want to ask you, if you are, if well, these are the things that you're going for. So slowing down, whether that's eating or just being mindful in general, and slowing down in your approach in your learning, specifically coding, or other areas. Are there other areas or other things that you're currently striving for?
I mean, at work, like, being a digital marketer, especially, like, again, a lot of things going on there. And sometimes you just want to be at the forefront of like information because, your colleagues rely on you for like this kind of information, which could be impacting our client performance, for example. So, yeah, like you said, I think that is a good point about like skim reading. Sometimes it's just better to slow down, do a deep understanding of that context, for example, and being able to do it better in terms of like interpreting the data, for example. And so you could have that capability to explain it clearly depending on who you're speaking to. So yeah, definitely. That's a good point.
What do you think will happen if you don't slow down, and if you just let it happen, like you just continue to eat super fast, you don't break down your work pieces into workable or chunks, and you just take on as much as you can, go as fast as you can? What do you think will happen if you do that?
I guess a burnout, like, one, if too many things going on, sometimes you just lose focus at some point, right? Like, okay, many things, but at the same time you're not good at one of those things, then you become frustrated. For example, like in coding, I guess it's also important to be good at point A, learn it and understand it as much you can, just so you can transfer that learning into point B should you need it again. Yeah, I guess you just have to keep that healthy balance between being motivated and also like challenge yourself, but not challenge yourself too much that you don't understand a thing about what you've learned and you can't like implement it into your real life settings learning. So definitely you're gonna get burnt out that way. I mean, I felt it. Like, I started coding 2 years ago and then I gave up because, like, oh my god, there's too many things going on. And now, like, I'm just accepting the fact that like it will take time. Like, I won't be like a expert in 6 months time or like 1 year. Probably for me it's gonna take like 3-5 years, just so I have a healthy balance of like enjoying it, and as well as being able to apply it into some other settings as well.
How did you get back into it when things became overwhelming, and when you stopped? How was the comeback?
To be fair, like, to be honest with you, like, it wasn't straight into it. Like, I've done it like twice or 3 times where I've given up. I guess the last time, like, I started again, it was just like, okay, set my own expectation, be like, okay, last time this way didn't work, why don't I just focus on 10% of it and be okay with it. And then using the habitat goal setting as well is quite important, like breaking down your goal. Okay, this month maybe I'll just learn about this, just so in 3 months I could build my own project, and then by the end of the year I'll be able to showcase it and ask for feedback. So that way it's just like more sustainable and it's quite enjoyable as well. So I think that is the most important aspect out of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to see when we are setting these expectations and when that becomes not useful, because either we are comparing that expectation, or that expectation comes from what we think we should be able to do compared to whatever, someone else. And if it is still useful and you are still be able to make progress, then I think that's cool. Continue to do that. But sometimes when it's not useful and it becomes too hard, I think it's important for us to, like you said, slow down and not feel like that it's like a bad thing. One of the things that we talked about, I think, during the Habitat project sessions is like the challenge itself, whatever it is that you're going for, is already hard enough, right? We don't need the extra, I guess, like whipping to do it, right? We need to be our own, we need to be our own inner coach to kind of coach ourselves through it. Because if we don't do that, then we will burn out and we'll feel bad about ourselves and we just don't make progress, which is even worse. So I want to bring it back to the practice of meditation and breath work. What is your current, or what have you been doing in terms of your meditation and breath work practice?
So yeah, I basically do it like on weekdays in the morning. So as I get up, shower, and do my thing, and then before I start work, I'll just set myself a time like 5 minutes using Headspace, just so I can get like a mental check-in, being aware of like what's happening with my physical state, mental state, whatsoever. And then normally after that, I do get like a sense of like, clarity. Like I said earlier, becoming productive, and then do the journaling as well, just making sure like, okay, what is my plan today? Or in the recent update of Habitat, we do like goal settings for financial, nutrition, or fitness, or whatsoever. So yeah, but like during the weekend, I must say like I don't do it. It's because like I just like to have like, because I'm that kind of person who likes to have structure. Like I have to get things done, this. Like that's why it gives me like, it could lead to burnout sometimes, because I just like to do so many things at once. And sometimes the weekend, I think, is the perfect time where I can just like let things be and just enjoy the day. Yeah, maybe the weekend is more like the time where I learn to slow things down and literally just be present.
Do you have a story or an example of when things do get too overwhelming, when you do take too much on, when things go quote unquote bad? Do you have an example of a story of, it doesn't have to be recent, but that you can recall of something like this happening, and what happened at that time?
I'm not quite sure if I remember any stories, but I'm sure there are days where, so many things going on. I live in the UK. When I have to live here, got married with my husband, I have to apply for like visa. At that time, we have to compile lots of evidence, making sure everything is there. So when we apply, it will go smoothly, because it's not cheap, right, to apply for this visa. Those could be one of the days where you still have, go to work, especially for my husband. I mean, kudos to him. After work, we just go to, okay, let's compile documents, making sure everything is in order, nothing's missed. And we, just overshare everything, right? Just so, it will go smoothly. But yeah, at the same time, like, it was stressful, but I think gladly we managed to, okay, if it gets too much, we'll just be like, okay, let's take a look tomorrow with a clearer head. And like, just be mindful in what we do, like what kind of documents we want to put in, not rushing, making sure, okay, read again what is needed, what is not. And yeah, I think so far we're good, and I'm still here, so yeah, not bad.
I think that's so important to be able to do that with your partner, to take on something with such a big, there's such high stakes because, well, if you screw it up, um, you don't get your visa, right? And that's super stressful. But being able to go through that with your partner and not only going through it, but succeeding as well, but learning to understand when each others are at their stress points and understand like, oh, this isn't going anywhere tonight. Like we need to take a break and give it another bash tomorrow or something. That in itself, I think, is super useful to and can be used in other areas of your relationship or of your life. Okay, cool. Let's move on. I want to talk to you about the practice of your meditation, the practice of your breath work, where you feel like you have now created this space, you feel like you are able to be more compassionate to yourself. Can you tell the difference between when you're not being compassionate to yourself and when you are? And what do the two different voices sound like?
I suppose when I'm not being compassionate towards myself, I'll be like, comparing and be like, okay, shouldn't you have done this? Shouldn't you do that? Do this? I think it's just like giving yourself more options like to do. Whilst when I become more compassionate towards myself, I'll be like, okay, uh, obviously the situation is not okay. And you'll be like accepting it, like things happen, right? What can you do? And I guess it gives you better perspective in terms of like, what can I do next? So
Mm,
I think it helps eliminating that like useless patterns of thoughts and more like providing yourself like one or two keys of like, okay, what can you do next? Or
mm,
like thousand solutions, you just focus on one or two immediate things that you can do that that will make an impact.
mm. And I think that takes practice in doing, because when we first look at our thought patterns and we look at our emotional patterns and we look at what is useful and what isn't useful, by practicing differentiating what is useful, what is not useful, and then going through it, we actually know whether or not something is useful or not useful, right? But without actually going through it, we actually don't know. It's still just an idea. So that we would gain the wisdom from the situation only after we first of all separate or discern between what is useful, what is not useful, and then using that, we still have to live through the situation. I think one of the things that, or one of the misconceptions of meditation, of practicing mindfulness, of journaling, of this practice of seeing what's useful and not useful in terms of thought and emotional patterns, is that the misconception is that once you do that, challenging or bad things don't happen anymore, which is absolutely like not how it works. Things are just going to happen regardless. But we have this tool or skill that we can train, that we can practice, and that we can use to bring ourselves into a position to go through the situation as best we can. How do you think your practice of this has been over time? Your practice of discerning what is useful and not useful, and then going through a tough situation.
I mean, you perfectly said it. Like literally, it's not going to solve your problems, but at least it gives you better perspective and peacefulness in what you can do next, right? Like it's not useful to dwell on the things that you can't control, for example. And I think it's just better to save your energy. Just be like, okay, cool. What can I do next? And if it doesn't work, then you just find another thing, right? And sometimes it's life is hard already, so don't make it too stressful by pressuring yourself to, to be perfect all the time, or like you have to solve this problem today. I mean, yes, there are cases where some problems have to be solved immediately, but I think wouldn't it be better if you have like a better headspace to solve your problems, or perhaps like, you could always ask for helps, or go somewhere and then come back to it and then be like, look, okay, maybe this is what we can do next.
Mm. Can you think of a time or a situation when your practice of meditation has allowed you to have this shift in perspective and like you're aware in the moment, like, oh, this is a not useful perspective, or this is a not useful thought or emotional pattern, and then being able to do something about it? Is there an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, at work, like all the time, sometimes you have to deal with your colleagues. I mean, I wouldn't say deal with it, right now I'm trying to change my perspective. And there are times when you just like get like,
They're not
well,
listening to
you
this
should know about
podcast, I
this.
guarantee it, so it's all right. You can say
Yeah, don't.
it.
But I'm getting better. I'm getting better. So it's okay if they listen to this. Yeah, like dealing with conflicts at work. Your first reaction, my first reaction used to be like, oh my God, why? Right? Like, why can't you do this? Why is it not like, you're just gonna start pointing fingers at others rather than like taking accountability and be like, okay, let's come up with a way how we can solve this together, perhaps, and win together, right?
Mm.
So that's one of them. Like, I guess when I see like some message from my college and be like, okay, it might sound like ridiculous to you, but at the same time, you gotta know where they're coming from. Perhaps they don't have the full context of the task, or maybe their seniority level or the knowledge that they have is not like what you have. So sometimes you have to empathize with that, and not everyone is you, and it's okay. Not everything revolves around you. So I think having that understanding is useful, and that comes from like practicing the mindfulness and be like, okay, let's take a step back and be like, okay, this person is not me, and the way they're thinking is not the same as how I think, perhaps. So I think it's better to slow down, understand where they're coming from, and then think of ways how we can deal with the problem together rather than like you're on your own.
Mm. I think one of the things that Andy Puddicombe said in one of the meditation sessions in Headspace is that even though when we practice meditation and we improve our ability to be mindful, be in the present, and create headspace and all this amazing stuff, it is still a benefit, or it's still good, like net good for all sentient beings. So even though I want to mention this because you said the world doesn't revolve around you, even though the world doesn't revolve around any of us individually, but by having this practice, we do benefit other people around us. And the only way to have that benefit is if we take care of ourselves first, take care of our perspective first, because that's the only way that we can view the situation from a different perspective or a more useful perspective, and therefore bring whatever's required into the situation instead of letting the situation kind of like get away from us. Okay, let's go into how do you think in that situation, how you think you would be if you just never did meditation, if you don't have a meditation practice, if you didn't have any understanding about mindfulness, how do you think you would be different for at work, with your family, with your loved ones, with your friends? How do you think that would be?
I guess I'll be like an old cranky lady. I'm basically just like dwelling on the one little things that you probably you could solve, right? Like, I guess I think you won't connect with that person in a way that like you will never understand people, which, you know, it's important to be able to empathize with day. um we all want to win, we all want to succeed, so why don't we, you know, make a productive solution, constructive solution in this case. So yeah, I guess I don't make, well, if I don't shift my perspective and like slowing down, the problem probably might might be solved on its own, but at the same time you'll have that sense of resentment. I guess you're gonna go back to the past and be like, this is what you did, it's gonna happen again, something like that. Or like with your partner, for example, you're just gonna focus on that one little flaw rather than like, you know, moving forward and be like, look, you know, we can instead talk about it, and when we move on we'll be able to solve the issues, you know, better. So yeah, I think it's useful to have that different perspective and being able to take a step back.
For me, it seems like the chaos or the randomness of thoughts is just, if you're not aware of it, it's just too much. So it's like you actually don't know what you're thinking. It's just thoughts all the time, right? And it's just like which one when you become aware of it, you gain an ability to choose the ones that are useful for you, or the ones that are going to be better for the situation. But if you don't practice that, for me, definitely I will be a lot more anxious. I will be thinking about more so, for me, it's more so about the future, about what's to come. It's a large source of fear about the unknown. So for me, when I practice meditation and journaling, it allows me to realize when that's what I'm doing, and it allows me to see that, okay, I'm here, but I'm thinking about this thing that actually doesn't exist. And then, why am I thinking about this thing? Why is this thing important? And then the next stage after that is, what can I do about it in this moment? What's within my control? What's within my control is my perspective towards this. And if this perspective is not useful, well, let's move on and practice creating other perspectives that are going to be more useful towards this particular situation. With journaling, how do you usually journal?
Again, like with the meditation practice, I do it in the morning, where I just, you know, set my intention for the day and plan out what I'm gonna do on that day, and making sure they're like to-do list, and making check in like with my mental state, like to see how I'm doing that day, and physically, mentally, and then plan out my days. Really, like it's almost like a diary to me. And then yeah, I think it's in a way that is more reflective as
Mm.
well. Like you actually have a purpose that day, and this is what you're gonna do. And again, I don't do it on the weekends, but yeah, I think it just helps with me being productive and not being, you know, getting too overwhelmed with what to do on that day. Especially, you know, there's days or season during work where things are hectic, and sometimes you just need to break things down and then prioritize. So journaling helps me with that.
Yeah. With journaling, I think what it does for me, firstly, is it allows me to see if my current state of mind is not useful, because I literally just write it out. And then if I feel like I'm whinging, or I feel like I'm being too negative, and my mindset stinks, I get to be like, oh, okay, is that how I want to have? Is that the mindset I want to have going into this day? And then I can literally write out a new one that gets me excited, gets me going, gets me fired up, gets me set up for the day. And the reason why I use Stoic philosophy to guide my journaling is because it is just so practical. It's just so easily applicable. Not every single teaching is going to be applicable immediately, but by just having it there, it's like I feel like I'm preparing myself for if a similar situation arises. I have it, I have something. It's not like I have nothing. And then it's just kind of like, I guess it's like rote learning, like you're just writing out the pattern. So I want to talk about this because for this new habit app feature, my idea was, okay, now the app's been out for it's been out since April. It's been out for about 9 months, 12. Yeah. And I think that it can be more effective in getting new users into the habit of meditation and journaling, because I think those are the more powerful habits in helping someone get themselves back on track. For meditation, in this new feature, it'll be a guided meditation through a 10-day track, and it's just something to get you started. And I think it's important, and this is something that we mentioned earlier, to not start too big. Yeah, start with the smallest, easiest steps, and to not bite off too big a chunk to have these massive expectations of, I don't know, reaching nirvana or whatever. Like, that's not what this is about. This is just to get started, right? This is to just get into this mode of practice. The second thing is by going through this 10 sessions, you will hopefully not have to think about whether or not you're doing it correctly, because it just guides you through it. And by guiding in the guidance, we go through again and again, like, this is the practice. This is just going through the practice. There is essentially no right or wrong to do it. The fact that you are going through the practice is already right. We are already making progress. With the journaling, it goes hand in hand with the meditation, because on one side, I think when we do meditation, we create the space. We're able to see our perspective, because we practice seeing our thoughts come and go. We practice seeing our emotions come and go. We practice distance, creating the space between ourselves and the emotion. We practice not being the emotion. We practice not being the thoughts. We practice seeing these emotions come and go. In journaling, we practice creating whatever thought patterns that are going to be useful for you for that day. And I'm trying to create it in a way similar to that of the journaling, of the meditation, where there is no right or wrong way to do it, but it is a practice. So by sitting down each day and writing out whatever your intentions are, you will get better and better at it, because you start to understand how whatever you're writing down in your journal affects the way that you see, or is the way that you see. And if that way is going to be useful for you, well, then you get to use that throughout the day. And when it deviates from that, or when something annoying or something bad, something negative happens and takes you out of that zone, for example, because you practice this daily, even when things aren't when things are going well, you can do it again, right? Because you've practiced it. So I think what I want to get the feedback of from all you guys that are going to be trying this is, number one, for the guided meditation, does it allow for that? Does it make you, if you're a new user, a new person to meditation, does it allow you to feel that, hey, by going through this, I am engaging in the practice, and I don't have this fear or expectation of it being necessarily right or wrong. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if 10 days is enough to get a habit going. I actually don't think that it will, but is it enough to pull you to be more interested in it, to find out more, to do other forms of meditation? And then number three, with the meditation, what kind of changes you actually see in this first 10 sessions? For the journaling, we start off very easy. So it starts off with really not super difficult dark questions or anything like that. Not that any journaling goes into that. Although some of the stoic journaling stuff in Habit app, reminds us of our death, reminds us of our family's death and things like that. But it is not in this beginning fundamentals feature. In this fundamentals feature, it is just about sitting down and practicing journaling, practicing seeing how you've been able to just sit down and write out what's going on, see whether or not that's useful, and creating something else that could be more useful. And it also has links to what's being taught in the guided meditation. So now I'm trying to see if this meditation and journaling being put together in this way, if this helps develop the habit of mindfulness, of awareness, non-judgmental awareness, the cultivation of compassion, and all of this, if this combination done this way would help that. So really grateful for all you guys who are giving this a try. Basically, you'll have X amount of time. Doesn't actually matter how long it takes. Doesn't have to be 10 consecutive days, although I think that helps. So go through it, do the guided meditation, do the journaling, and yeah, let me know how it goes. Have you got any questions about it?
No, I guess, yeah, like you said, I could just start whenever. And then, I mean, it is 10 days, but it's not really like there's a timeline about it, right?
No, because I think realistically, when people first start doing it, they're probably not going to be doing it in 10 consecutive days. Or maybe they do, but it doesn't matter. What these 10 days is supposed to be is once you go through 10 days, you've got a taste of basics on how to start meditation, what is it about, what it's not about, but you're just starting. So you get that taste, and you get a taste of sitting down each day to create mental, first of all, to be aware of your mental patterns for that day, and then to write out new ones. That's where it is at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it, like giving the users an option, whether you want to do it consecutive 10 days or just like on your own time, because some people might want to repeat the first session because they find it useful to begin with, and they might take it for a week and then move on. So yeah, I think that's a nice idea.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even think of that, because then that's really immersing yourself into it without moving on too fast, right? That is cool. That is cool. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of doing stuff like this. I get these new ideas.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
talk to you about, yeah, sorry.
yeah, I had a quick look at the journal, the guided journaling bit, and I know in the first one you've got 4 questions, and then second, third you go two, and then you've got suddenly like a list of questions. So yeah, I think it is useful to give that options back to the users where they're like, okay, are you ready to move on, or maybe perhaps make the questions like more gradual in terms of like the increase amount of it, maybe like start with 2 and then 2, 3, 3, and then longer and longer. But yeah.
Okay. I think you'll see when you go through it that although there are more questions, they might be actually easier to answer. Whilst in the beginning ones, they might be, I mean, in the beginning, it might be easier to answer as you go along. Might be a bit more difficult, so I break it down. But who knows? I'd love to hear the feedback once you've done it. I want to talk to you about something that you mentioned before, which is the similarities between your journaling in terms of your daily journaling and a workout program. What do you mean by this, and where can you see the similarities, and where do you think it's useful?
I mean, like the way that I've been training, to make a more productive session and to give valuable insights for my coach, I try to, give as much detail as possible. And that means like when I do the workout, making sure like, okay, he gave me the set of workout to focus on this thing. This is the intensity. So by writing it down, it ensures that, oh yeah, I did that today, and then this is how I felt. And that kind of confirms on like the progression that I could do and especially for my coach, it's useful. The more data you could give, the better.
Mm.
And for example, if the workout was too hard or your level is not there yet, it's useful for them to know, and to making sure you're not injured or get too tired or overtrained, right? So I guess to some extent it's kind of similar with journaling. You've got like things to do on that day, or like checking in how you feel that day. You won't say like, okay, my left thigh is tired or something, but you could be like, okay, today feels hard because yesterday I did a lot of like stressful things or whatever, or at work whatsoever, I had an argument. So today I'm gonna do this because I feel like it's gonna be useful or something. So both just as reflective, in my opinion, and it's also productive.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because I came across this thing when I was still doing bodybuilding, and my friends gave me this Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding by Arnold. And basically in that, he writes out his whole, I can't remember, maybe like 1 month or 2 months program ahead of time. And he called it like writing out his future. He literally was like, this is where I'm going to be at this time. This is where I'm going to be at this. And he has very detailed ways as to getting there. And I think being exposed to that at that time, and then trying it out as best I could in following a program and seeing the progress over time, allowed me to see that, okay, if we do have a set plan, even though the plan might not be executed accordingly, it allows you to have this direction, and allows you to pull your resources, allows you to pull your energy, allows you to see where you're going right and wrong, allows you to make adaptations and changes along the way. And that is such a powerful thing because it literally allows you to create the change that you want in your life. And I think like this daily journaling allows us to do that all the time with the way that we think. If we want to, we're literally writing out the way that we want to think. We're writing out the type of person that thinks this way, the type of person that is able to think this way, the type of person that is able to have these kind of perspective, the type of person is able to solve these problems, the type of person who is able to, whatever character that you want to be. If you have a journaling practice, you're literally writing that out. And then as you go throughout the day, you try to live as best you can using that perspective and using that mindset and using the thought patterns of that character. Wherever you are able to align with that character through a situation and become better from it, you are casting a vote to become, you're growing into that person. And when you cannot, where you fall short, for example, where you're like, okay, this is my mindset, this is the way that I'm doing it, but you still fall short. You see where you fall short, and you see where the gaps are, and allows you to be able to make the changes necessary or get yourself back and see what needs to be improved in order to close that gap. And I really wish or hope that when people are going through a hard time and they are trying some meditation, doesn't have to be with Habit app or through whatever we're doing, but whatever they're doing, if they're practicing meditation and practicing give this tool, that they give this tool a try and see how it can benefit them in creating the person that they want to be in order to, overcome whatever obstacles that they're going through. Um, let's a couple more questions. What would you say to someone who's going through a setback, who is perhaps beginning to start their meditation practice, start their journaling practice, start their self-cultivation journey, basically? What would you say to someone who is going through something like this right now?
I think the most important thing that you could do to yourself is just be kind, be compassionate towards yourself. Like, not everyone's gonna do it perfectly, and that's okay. I think that's what also helped me, like, be in this journey where I could progress. But there are days like it's not it, and that's okay. And yeah, I mean, there will be challenges. I'm not saying this is gonna solve all your problems on day one. It is a journey, not a destination. So yeah, just keep showing up. I guess that's one thing you could do, and then just be kind to yourself.
Awesome. And this year you want to slow down. You want to slow down your eating. You want to slow down in your ability to, I guess, break down a large task into small workable chunks and to make progress. In a year's time, you will look back on this video. What would you like to say to yourself at that time?
No pressure. Yeah, I mean, just enjoy the journey. I mean, I can't predict the future, and then knowing myself, I just be present and do as much as I can. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. If not, then we'll have another talk, I guess.
What would Athena in 1 year's time say to Athena today?
I'd like to say congratulations. Like, if I could enjoy and be able to taste a meal and be like down to the tea and be like, oh yeah, this tastes like garlicky or whatever, I think I'll be happy. Hopefully I'll be a happier person next year.
Yeah. Actually, Leah is really, really good at that. Like, she can taste, like, her palate, like, she can taste like really, really detailed things. So next time you're in town, we should have dinner, and then yeah, we can talk to her about that, because she also she eats super slow as well. Yeah. Cool. Any lasting remarks, things you want to talk about, things you want people to pay attention to before we wrap up?
No, I guess just want to thank you for this opportunity. Obviously, like, Habitat's been a really cool feature, and then something that I could implement on a daily basis. I know I'm not like the A student where I do like meditation day and night every day, but it helps me to some extent, and I'm like enjoying this journey, and hopefully people will find it useful as well.
Thank you so much, Athena. I really appreciate that, and really appreciate all the help and all the support that you've given to me and this project so far. I look forward to talking to you more once you've done the 10 sessions and we get the feedback and further develop this app.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, and 恭喜恭喜.
Yeah, happy Chinese New Year.
All right, have a good one. I created Habit app and the Habitat community to help those who are going through a setback get back on track. Habit app is a mobile app that helps those that are feeling down get back on track by creating structure in a morning and night routine. If you're going through a hard time, I just want you to know that you are not alone, and you don't have to go through this alone. We have a weekly meetup where guys that are working on their own habits and their own routines come together to support one another. If you're keen, please email me on anthony@thehabitatproject.net, or you can DM me on our Instagram @habitapp_. For all information on what I'm doing for this project, please check out our website, thehabitatproject.net. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Please share this with your friends and family if they need the tools, techniques, and perspective that we talk about to get them back on track if they're going through a setback. please give me up to a 5-star review on Spotify. It would really help out this little show that I'm building. If there's any feedback, please let me know, and I'll continue to put them into work to improve on this craft of podcasting. I'm Anthony. I'm inspired by your grit, your efforts, your stories, and I'm grateful to be on this journey with you. Keep on cultivating good habits, pursue your dreams, and enjoy life. As always, much love, and see you on the next episode.